The letter was thick, printed on heavy, expensive stock. Ben Clarke picked it up from the porch, his good mood from a successful product launch evaporating as he recognized the Avalon Ridge Homeowners Association logo. He tore it open. "Another one," Anya called from the kitchen, her voice tired. "What is it this time?" "Grass half an inch too long. The wrong shade of beige on the garden gnome." Ben scanned the document, his jaw tightening. "Worse. Unapproved structural modification." Anya came to the doorway, wiping her hands on a towel. "The pergola. We submitted those plans 6 months ago. They never responded. They're saying our non-response constitutes denial." Ben read, his voice flat. "We have 30 days to dismantle it at our own expense, or face a $500 a day fine." This was the latest in a long line of petty harassments from the Ho board, led by its president, Cynthia Morrow. Cynthia lived 2 streets over in a house so starkly perfect it looked like a museum exhibit. Her life's work seemed to be enforcing Avalon Ridge's covenants with the zeal of a Spanish inquisitor. Their friend and neighbor, a sweet, retired history teacher named Arthur, had been their primary target. When Arthur's wife passed, had let the landscaping go slightly wild, planting native flowers instead of the approved hybrid roses. The fines piled up. He couldn't pay. The Ho, leveraging a powerful clause in the covenants, foreclosed on his home. He had 60 days to leave. The for sale sign went up last week. Ben crumpled the letter. "This is about Arthur. We spoke up for him at the last meeting. Cynthia is making an example of us." Anya's eyes, usually bright with humor, were hard. "She's a bully, and bullies only understand one language." That night, over a bottle of wine they couldn't afford to care about, they hatched a plan. It wasn't a plan of anger, but of cold, calculated precision. Ben and Anya were both senior software engineers. They didn't fight with fists or lawyers, they fought with code. "We play their game," Anya said, her finger tracing the rim of her glass. "But we play it better. We use their own rules against them." Ben nodded, a grim smile forming. "We become the most perfect, bylaw enforcing homeowners Avalon Ridge has ever seen." They called their project the Byline. For the next 2 weeks, every spare moment was spent in their basement office. Ben built the core architecture while Anya, the UX wizard, designed the interface. The Byline was a masterwork of malicious compliance. It ingested the Ho's 200-page covenant document and cross-referenced it with publicly available data and a small army of discrete, Wi-Fi-enabled cameras and sensors they placed around the neighborhood. The Byline's mission was simple: identify every single covenant violation committed by the Ho board members and their allies, and report them, automatically and relentlessly. The first salvo was a test. They targeted Gary, the board treasurer, a man with a passion for his BMW and a hatred for parking rules. The Byline's license plate reading camera caught his car parked on the street for 17 minutes past the 6 p.m. deadline. An automated report was filed to the Ho's online portal at 6:18 p.m. precisely. The next day, Gary received a formal violation notice. He was furious, sputtering at the pettiness. Cynthia dismissed it as a glitch. Phase 2 began. The Byline went fully operational. It caught Cynthia's contractor power washing her driveway on a Sunday, a direct violation of the noise ordinance. Report filed. It detected that the height of the hedge separating Vice President David's property from the sidewalk exceeded the 42-inch maximum by 3 full inches. Report filed. It noted that the seasonal reef on board member Brenda's door was still up to days into the new season, constituting non-seasonal core. Report filed. At first, it was chaos. The board members, who had never been held to their own standards, were inundated. They accused each other of sabotage. Meetings became shouting matches. The Clarke's pergola violation was mysteriously lost. But Cynthia was clever. She caught on. One evening, She marched up to Ben as he was getting the mail. "This is you, Clarke," she hissed, her face a mask of controlled rage. "This petty, technological terrorism." Ben feigned innocence. "I have no idea what you're talking about, Cynthia. We're just trying to be good neighbors. Isn't that what the covenants are all about? Maintaining standards." The war escalated. Cynthia used her authority to have a compliance audit performed on the Clarke property. The inspector, a humorless man in a cheap suit, found nothing. The byline had ensured the Clarke home was, to the millimeter, in perfect compliance. Frustrated, Cynthia changed tactics. She began arbitrarily rejecting the automated reports. The byline adapted. Anya added a new module, public byline. Every rejected violation was now automatically posted to a beautifully designed, anonymous website, Avalon Ridge Truth, complete with timestamps, photos, and the relevant covenant text. She then seeded the link into the neighborhood's sprawling Facebook and Nextdoor groups. The public shaming was catastrophic for the board. Their authority, built on a facade of impeccable perfection, crumbled. Neighbors they had bullied for years now openly mocked them. David's overgrown hedge became a local landmark. Brenda was teased about her wreath at the supermarket. Cynthia was cornered, and a cornered animal is dangerous. The byline had found one of her deepest secrets, an unpermitted, elaborately plumbed koi pond in her backyard, a massive violation. The report was queued. The public reveal would be the killing blow. The night before the report was set to auto-publish, the Clarke's doorbell rang. It was past midnight. Ben looked through the peephole to see Cynthia, but not the perfectly coiffed Cynthia. This woman was disheveled, her eyes red-rimmed. Against his better judgment, he opened the door. Anya came to stand behind him. "Please," Cynthia said, her voice ragged. There were no threats, no demands, just a broken plea. "The pond, my husband built it for me before he died. It's all I have left of him. If you make that public, it's not just a violation. You'll be tearing down his last gift to me." Ben and Anya were stunned. They saw the human being behind the monster. The grief that had perhaps calcified into cruelty. "You foreclosed on an old man who lost his wife," Anya said, but her voice lacked its earlier venom. "I know," Cynthia whispered, tears streaming down her face. "It was business. It was the covenants. I was wrong. I see that now. Please. I'll resign. I'll drop all the fines. I'll make sure Arthur gets his house back. Just please don't do this." Ben and Anya exchanged a long look. Their revenge was perfect. It was victory. But the cost suddenly felt immense. They had become the very thing they hated. Ruthless enforcers, blind to humanity. The byline was a system. It could be shut down. "The report is cancelled," Ben said quietly. "Well, take the site down. But we have your word. Arthur's house. And you resign. Tomorrow." Cynthia nodded, a sob of relief escaping her. She turned and walked away into the darkness. A month later, Avalon Ridge was a different place. Cynthia had resigned citing personal reasons. A new, more lenient board was elected, with Anya surprisingly voted in as the new vice president. Arthur was back in his home, his native garden, now officially designated a community wildlife habitat. Ben and Anya sat on their perfectly compliant pergola, watching the sunset. The fight was over. They had won. But the victory tasted different than they'd expected, not sweet, but sobering. They had learned that the most powerful weapon wasn't a perfectly executed algorithm, but the capacity for mercy, and that sometimes, the most gripping revenge is choosing to stop.